Hi everyone, this is Mejia, and we are very excited to talk to you about our case for mobile electronic exams. We want to, our objective for today is we want to talk to you about what our experience has been like, why we chose ExamSoft to begin with, what our pilot structure was, and what we believe is a successful, repeatable process for other institutions that might want to implement the solution, why we implemented in our tablet initiative, and sort of our lessons learned so that you don't make some of the same mistakes that we did in the process. So without further ado, I would like to introduce each one of my colleagues. You first.
I'm Kenneth. As described, I'm the Director of Removable Prosthodontics and have been trying to champion electronic testing here at the school, most notably with ExamSoft, although we have looked at a number of other alternative platforms. Those platforms have ranged from everything from paper exams and Scantron, Blackboard, Canvas, using clickers and Turning Point, Camtasia, Respondus, use of emails, blogs, and different polling mechanisms. I've been here at the School of Dental Medicine since 1980, and my current role is the Director of Removable for the last 5 years.
So again, my name is Mejia. I'm the Director of Online Learning and one of the ExamSoft champions for this initiative. I should mention too that Dr. Kent and I both co-chaired a pilot group to help get this initiative off the ground. I've been at Penn for just over 5 years and have been in my current role since the summer.
Hi guys, I'm Ryan Burkhart. I'm the project manager for ExamSoft, kind of the lead project manager in implementing ExamSoft here. I've worked with faculty and staff, training power users and things like that. I'm also a multimedia designer here at the University of Pennsylvania School of Dental Medicine. I started with Penn Dental Medicine earlier this year, and they're keeping me very, very busy with initiatives like this.
Hi, my name is Bennett, and I work in the Office of Academic Affairs. I've been at Penn Dental for 7 years, and during this project, I worked as the academic liaison, and I also was the author of many of the exam day protocols, and I make sure that we keep the integrity of the academic exam process.
My name is Chia-Wei. I'm the Associate Director of Online Curriculum Design. So I work with faculty and try to find the potential of use of electronic exam.
Great. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about ExamSoft use here at Penn Dental. We had, as Dr. Ken alluded to just a minute ago, we've been trying to get electronic exams off the ground for quite some time, and really the traction, sort of all the pieces came together for us starting in January. That's when all of this kind of kicked off, though it wasn't until May till we actually had a pilot group together. And that group consisted of about 20 faculty, staff, support staff from all areas of the school, representing our 3 core areas. So by that I mean basic sciences, clinical sciences, administration, within administration, academic affairs, IT, and our new area of online learning.
I think it's key to emphasize that as we put this whole group together, it was not just one modality. We had all of the different branches that were involved in the process. We all got together, and one of the nice things about this pilot was it was the most effective collaboration of all of the different groups as we got going. We started out in the spring with a course in removable partial dentures and introduction to clinical dentistry, which were with the rising juniors. We decided that we were going to have a pilot using their own devices as a platform. The students were not given a choice as to whether they were going to participate in the program. We administered a number of exams. It was beginning with some practice quizzes and exams to orient the students on how to use ExamSoft, then to give them some mock exams in the subject matter, both in Introduction to Clinical Dentistry and Removable Partial Dentures, and then moved on to the ICD course where we gave one final examination and the partial denture course where we administered a number of quizzes and then a final examination. Throughout the process, we collected feedback from the students and the instructors, and we shared this with the group. One of the ways that we were collecting feedback was actually leaving an opportunity as one of the questions to be an essay that solicited response from the participants in the process. We had a lot of success with our initial evaluation and favorable response from all participants. And so over the course of the summer, we decided that we were going to extend the pilot. We initially were looking towards increasing the response with some additional courses. Our dean became a very rapid proponent of it and decided that we should expand and go into a mobile platform at approximately the same time, which led to the Digital Impressions Initiative.
So that's what we call our tablet initiative internally. So this year, just this August, we started issuing iPads to all of the first-year dental students. So the Case for Why Mobile, we're going to show you our environment in just a second here, but you know, as Dr. Kent just alluded to, we conducted a survey from our students, and we really tried to pay attention to not just the modality, like what was it like taking the electronic exam, but we wanted to learn from whether it made sense for students to use their own devices. So really, you know, why did we go mobile? Well, that was largely due to facilities constraints. You know, here in the Northeast, space is kind of at a premium, so whenever you want to make change, physical plant changes, you're usually talking about a renovation. And in our instance, our two largest auditoriums are a bit on the older side, so in order to provide power for every student, that would require some significant work from facilities, which just wasn't possible at the time. So we began exploring, okay, well, how else can we offer this, how else can we set up electronic exams? So facilities was definitely a primary driver. Another primary driver was a lot of the concerns that were expressed by students. So if you can imagine, just picture in your head, if you will, about 120 students in a lecture hall, and I'm going to show you a picture of that lecture hall in just a second. But there was concern about being able to see your neighbor's screen, given the close proximity of students to one another. They're only about a foot or two apart. So even though, of course, we took advantage of randomized questions and randomized choices, we really wanted to address the privacy concerns. Our motto from the beginning was, let's make adoption as easy as possible, easy and as anxiety-free as possible. And then the last point was, not every student has a new laptop. There are some students who, you know, come with older equipment, so batteries was potentially an issue. So if we weren't able to provide each student with access to power on top of a, you know, optimal battery life, that just made the test-taking experience for some a little bit more stressful than it really needed to be.
Some of you may be wondering why not just mobile, but why did we even go to an electronic testing platform? And there were a number of factors that came into play. The most predominant was that it was taking quite a bit of time for us to get analysis of the examinations. We'd administer an exam, usually via Scantron or written type examinations, and it would take many times weeks for us to get analysis and response. The scoring could be very difficult, especially as we assessed each question and we wanted to modify the scoring rubrics that we were using for these. Additionally, tracking over time was very difficult. Academic Affairs served as a repository, but each individual course instructor was the primary keeper of their data, and there really was not pooling of the data across the board. So we were looking for ways that we could track the performance of our students over time. At the same time, we have an initiative that we're changing our curriculum and trying to implement a flipped classroom, as well as a more cohesive bound curriculum with better interface of all of the disciplines. And by having electronic testing, we were able to implement better sharing of information across the different courses.
So, and just a couple of other points here, and guys, feel free to jump in. I mean, it just, like I said, more and more going mobile made a lot of sense for us because we didn't want to be in a position to possibly have to hire another FTE to support, you know, myriad of different hardware. So between standard platform, the fact that our students are already comfortable with iOS devices, we use iOS devices pretty heavily in our clinics, and you know, it made sense with our mission. You know, we have Penn Dental Medicine is committed to staying at the forefront of technology and providing the highest quality education that we can. So it just made more and more sense to do this. So I wanted to show you a picture of our physical environment. So this is one of our largest auditoriums. This seats about 150 students, I believe. This is Levy B13. This is where most of our first-year classes are held in this room, as well as in B13. Now, this room in particular, you can see that the students are sitting pretty closely to one another. So this is where we held, just happened with the classes that we were piloting in. It turns out that this room was the one that was scheduled for the exam. But as
we were giving an exam in this room, a 15 or 20-minute quiz usually was not an issue. But when we started to give final examinations, for example, that could be more than an hour, we had problems with students having concerns about power. And as you can notice, there's really not a place for any student to plug in. Additionally, there were issues with accessibility to the internet during the course of the examination. Did we want to have an exam that was dependent upon the internet or that enabled us to be free of the internet?
And then just showing you, you know, once we'd made the decision to go mobile, we did not pilot ExamSoft in this room or in the other image I'm going to show you in just a second. But going mobile now opened up all sorts of possibilities. We could actually take advantage of every single instructional space, event space, seminar room, what have you. So I'm just showing you a couple of pictures. This is one of our seminar rooms. So all of a sudden, we don't have to be constrained to one particular location. This is another one of our seminar rooms.
We actually have even given examinations in our preclinical laboratory spaces.
So I guess we'll talk a little bit about the challenges we faced in implementing the iPad policy. So, you know, number one, really, whenever you're putting forth an initiative like this, it's absolutely important that all players involved are aligned and come to an agreement on how to deal with issues as they appear. So that sort of goes without saying, but that really was the case in our pilot group. Like I said, we had a cross-section of people involved. So everything from creating the ExamSoft policies, the exam day protocol policies, to sharing documentation, we wanted to make sure that everyone in the pilot group was absolutely 100% in agreement with how we should go. Because that group represented a good sampling for who would be the heavy users of the product, excuse me.
And our use of the mock exams not only enabled us to facilitate training, but it also helped us to calibrate everybody and to be able to identify some of the early issues with giving the examination across the platforms and using the electronic testing modality prior to actually having it for an exam that counted. We developed training programs that were focused not only towards the students, but to the faculty and the staff, because each had a separate role. As we initially began, we had the students using their own different platforms, which provided its own challenges, and so the decision was made, again, with the support of the dean, that we were going to go to a mobile platform. And he actually funded a tablet initiative pretty much spontaneously during the summer, where we decided that every entering first-year student was going to have a tablet which was preloaded with our mobile platform, including the ExamSoft software. One of the interesting objections that we encountered on the parts of our students was the upperclassmen that did not get the tablets, and they were very upset about the fact that they had to continue taking exams using their own platform rather than being given tablets upon which they could do it.
So to that end, we wanted to give you a close-up of the tablet initiative. So this is just a screenshot of the public-facing digital impression site, telling a little bit about the program. But there were really, it wasn't just ExamSoft that really propelled this initiative. It definitely, electronic exams was a key driver, but we were also at a point where we could bundle in other, what I'll call our core suite of apps. And as you can see there, soft test, the ExamSoft client is definitely something that we require and is required of every student to use in their first year courses. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ryan.
Yeah, we decided, since these were kind of a gift to the incoming class, we decided to lightly manage these devices through a mobile device management portal. The students still can install any app they want. They can treat it like it's their own device because, in fact, it is. We can suggest installing, a list of apps and things like that, and they can access that through our MDM platform. But ultimately, the device is theirs. We got an extra Apple Care warranty on them and things like that, just because we know the busy lives of students and things that we wanted to make sure that they could have the device to use with them through their tenure here at Penn Dental Medicine.
We also, the tablet initiative really standardizes, levels the playing field, so to speak. So, all of a sudden, yes, it's nice to give students this particular tool. It's also nice to be able to leverage electronic exams. But to that end, too, we were able to address a number of the concerns that they had. So now you can, actually, I'm going to go back for a second. Now you can, the more you use, as a faculty member, the more you use the ExamSoft platform, the less likely you are to have any IT intervention. Everyone's using the same device. They're very easy to use. Once you get used to the exam day protocols, which for us requires, getting into guided access mode, how to submit your exam, how to get back on our Wi-Fi network, it actually becomes very easy to deal with the administration process.
One area of special concern, though, especially where each student has ownership of their device, is to make sure that they follow recommendations about when they do upgrades and how they handle upgrades. Sure. We did have one experience where some of the students upgraded their iOS prematurely and had some issues with being able to take one of the examinations because of conflicts. Those conflicts were resolved very, very quickly, but we had, interestingly, advised the students not to do the upgrade. Some of them chose to do it anyway.
So to that end, this is, again, where it's really nice having a single platform where it's easy enough to train faculty or train your proctors or train anyone who's participating in the exam as an administrator for things to look for. If we were still using different hardware, those issues, it's not that the issues are hard to address, it's just you encounter more of a variety, and that's going to require a lot more support than everyone being in the same environment, same device.
One of the things that you must be aware of if you're just beginning to implement an electronic testing platform is that you do need to have IT support very intensely early on. As you get better at it, you can limit the amount of IT support on site during any particular examination. Our policy still is that any major midterm or final examination, we have IT support at the site where the examination is being given.
Yeah, so we really felt that that was a key component to delivering success for this product. I don't know how other schools are approaching this or whatnot. I've seen on community forums and things like that where if a student has an IT problem, they're simply directed to call the ExamSoft support number. Because we were determined to make this work and be a success inside of Penn Dental Medicine, I personally, along with Mejia, director, and a few other colleagues, were on board and present from everywhere from helping the faculty members design their exams initially, create and post their assessments, any questions that they had, and everything from there on down to the delivery of the exam, helping out students. One thing for sure that was a big primary change, kind of speaking to this whole unified platform thing, was when we went from phase 1 over the summer to the start of phase 2, when we introduced the iPad initiative. It was so much easier from an IT support standpoint. Every student that approached me over the summer, we went from a Surface tablet to someone was trying to use a Chromebook at one point. Someone's laptop did not have a working network card. So at the end of their exam, they had to come up to the podium and actually plug into the Cat5 connection to upload their file. So that was a really big, the biggest noticeable change from the IT support standpoint is, having a unified platform that these devices are brand new out of the box for the most part, and really cut down on a lot of the different problems that we would see at the end of each exam.
And it cannot be understated, the outliers in the performance are very, very disruptive to implementing any new program. So the more consistency you can implement as you develop your platform, the better you are. So
with that, that kind of segues perfectly into our next slide about addressing, any concerns surrounding the challenges that we had. So really the key thing for us was learning at every opportunity, whether that was student feedback, faculty feedback, sheer observation during the proctoring experience. We also reached out to 5 other peer institutions to kind of learn from them and find out, was there anyone else who'd invested in a tablet initiative? And of everyone we talked to, mostly everyone was relying on students bringing in their own hardware, and sort of the themes that I kept hearing was, well, we needed an FTE to help support this, full-time employee. Now, in our case, that would have been a bit of a challenge. Plus, we really wanted to get to the point where once we train the trainers or train our primary users or super users, faculty and their support staff, we wanted to be able to provide standby support if needed, but also help people help themselves. The development of the pilot group also was a key portion of the success. Having the diverse group made up of the clinical sciences, the basic sciences, our staff, and our administration, all with a buy-in to the program, was absolutely essential. We had over 20 members who were active in the pilot group, although it was only 2 courses that were the initial pioneers. We very quickly got off the ground and had a lot of momentum. The early adopters were extremely enthusiastic about the successes that we had. The difficulties that we encountered were minimal and were no more significant than the same sorts of problems that we encounter with a paper examination. As we were doing it, the closer communication we had amongst all of the different members of the pilot, as well as the rest of the university, was key. So we maintained open dialogue, both electronically as well as face-to-face contact through every step of the development process. There was a lot of sharing of expertise. We shared our common problems and our successes. So yeah, I mean, for some of you who are wondering, well, how do you do that? Literally for us, we shared everything in Box. Our university has offers a service through Box.net. We call it Penn Box. So literally, anytime a draft of protocol or documentation or screenshots of or how to do something, all of that was shared through Box. We also kept a real-time Google Doc on general questions to make it as easy as possible. If you weren't able to come to a pilot group, you could still have your question addressed. Of course, ExamSoft was very helpful. Both Brooke and Aubrey have been incredibly helpful to us in pinging other schools that they work with as well. So, bottom line, transparency, 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 completely open and accessible to everyone in our pilot group. And then once we had worked out a smooth enough process for administering exams and scoring, sharing that same information with our faculty and students is also key.
The face-to-face contact is also critical. Even though we're talking about an electronic platform, electronic communication does not allow you to share the enthusiasm that you have for the platform. And that was a key part of our getting other people to buy in to the whole process.
And I'll just add one more thing. I know Maria had touched on super users. One of our strategies was looking at the courses in the academic year that were going to be part of the second phase of the pilot, and we targeted those administrators and that support staff and really focused in on them and kind of trained, worked face-to-face, one-on-one with them to train them, and then they worked with their colleagues and they used their rapport and really developed a network where IT could kind of step back a little bit. We still had a plethora of online resources. We would direct them to online communities. They still could email. We have a group email account called PDM Learn, where they could reach out and say, hey, I'm having a question with this or anything like that. But once we got a core group of users in place that were very strong, that kind of aided us in kind of stepping back a little bit and being able to look at things at a larger picture in the project standpoint.
So this is, again, kind of dovetailed perfectly into the steps we found were critical to the success of this program. So as I just said, clarity and accessibility by far made the biggest difference in having clearly defined project owners. So for example, it would, even if I didn't know the answer to an academic integrity question, Tanya being right there could answer those questions and quickly address those concerns. Similarly with IT or from a curriculum standpoint, we had, going back to the pilot group and designing a pilot group with all the key stakeholders we could think of, that's really the bottom line of our success. I like to say, I keep referring to Dr. Kent as our ExamSoft champion and pioneer. I love to say that faculty are our best salespeople. I'm putting you on the spot. But, if we can, that really is the best form of internal sales, if you will, knowing that Dr. Kent or any of the other faculty that were involved in the pilot, hearing their success stories, that's really what allowed us to gain some momentum behind this, in addition to the strong documentation and training aids we just alluded to. And I just want to show you briefly a quick snapshot of the faculty resources that we had available. And this is in addition to what ExamSoft already provides inside the client and on the ExamSoft portal. So we use Canvas as our LMS, and we have an open course for faculty that's just known as the LTT, the Learning Technologies Community site. And within that site, we list all of our technologies. And this is a screenshot of just our page that we have devoted to ExamSoft. So anytime there's a question, faculty can go to this page, look up videos on what we have available, documentation that relates to the dental school specifically. And we also hold workshops and these kind of change seasonally, but you can see we had a number every week, workshops devoted to just ExamSoft for 2 hours at a time. So our goal wasn't just, here's the product, but really how to use it.
And one of the things that we found very useful about ExamSoft specifically was it lent itself to self-learning. There was plenty of excellent documentation online. We did augment it, but the base core documentation that was provided by ExamSoft was excellent. And the resources that ExamSoft provided when we had problems, there was instantaneous response for any of the challenges or difficulties that we encountered.
We would also encourage any of the faculty or staff coming to these workshops to bring their own questions. We would often give a 20-minute, beginning of the workshop, cover 1 or 2 topics or something like that. But we found we could stand up there and, give a presentation, but really, some people really learn by getting, rolling back their sleeves and getting hands-on. So we would encourage them to bring their own questions on a flash drive or something like that, and we would actually, help them create 5 or 10 questions inside the workshop. And we would cover multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank, and that was really paramount and monumental to getting them to learn how to utilize the software.
So as far as student resources go, we would embed, this is actually taken from one of our courses, we have a module that we could just plop into a course so that the instructor can assign students a mock exam or assign a tutorial. Again, kind of addressing that concern of, oh, I don't know where to get these resources. Well, boom, they're right there. We have them available everywhere. And then internally, this is a screenshot of one of our tutorials that Ryan created. This is specifically addressed to our sophomores, but it goes over, again, information that's specific to the dental school. What are expectations? And I picked this slide in particular because we've really highlighted going to mobile and standardizing everything. Well, there's still what I like to say is the exam taker's end of the bargain to uphold. So making sure their device is fully charged, downloading the assessment before exam day, kind of those what I call common sense issues, and spelling them out in our training.
So that became a key part of our development of policy, which was spearheaded by Tanya with academic affairs. We tried to address as many potential problems as possible to formulate a policy and put it into place to prevent those problems from occurring. And we placed the responsibility on all of the vested interests, the students, the faculty, the administration, to make sure that they adhere to policy.
And what you're actually looking at in that screenshot is we have what's called a media site here. It's kind of a custom-built YouTube channel. So this is actually a still taken from streaming content that they can stream online on any device. It's iPad compliant. If you remember back to the app catalog screen, we had a media site app for the iPad students. You can see on the right-hand side there's chapter markers. So normally the Prezi bar at the bottom is covering this up, but they have a slider just like any other streaming video platform or things like that, and they can actually click on any of the links on the right-hand side and get right to what they're looking at. So if they have a problem registering or forgetting their password or something like that, they can quickly jump to the link on the side, on the right there, and it would get instant access to the information of what they're looking for rather than watching the 13-minute video, which of course we encourage them to do anyway.
And then just the last item here, just a quick shot of what our portal looks like, and you can do this too. And some of you may have already done this, but we emphasize, how being able to get the help that you need as an exam taker or as a faculty member or someone supporting faculty. Help is available 13 hours a day, 6 days a week. So actually, I think Tanya should talk about this one. This is kind of one of our crown jewels. So this is exam day protocol.
Okay. So to keep with the academic, we have very high academic integrity standards here, and as far as the exam day protocols go, we wanted to maintain that level of integrity across formats. So moving to this format, I had to work on and draft policies that would be befitting for the new format, which are the device policies. So those policies that you see there are policies that we actually wrote, like they must bring the same device, they must have their own backup power supply, and since we're dealing with Apple devices, we will not support jailbroken devices, and I know you guys probably know what that means. We also wanted to emphasize that students taking the exam if they should have problems, they should get the attention of the proctor quietly. And we also addressed the issue of people having unnecessary reboots, things like that. And with mobile devices or any devices, I proctored an exam personally, and I noticed people had Post-it notes, and they tend to have Post-it notes on their own personal devices. And for the class that did not get iPads, I actually had to remove notes and post-its and foreign objects from their devices. So I found that fitting to write that in the policies as well. So that's something to look out for and maybe reinforce when you go through your transition to these exams.
One of the new phases of this also was that as we were having some potential IT issues, we decided that we were going to remove any potential questions from the examination room so that they were not disruptive. And we set up an adjacent classroom to the major testing site where our IT faculty were available, and if students had any questions related to exam content, they were told that they were to be dismissed from the exam room and go immediately next door to interface with the IT people so that there would be no disruption.
So the image on the screen there, you're probably wondering, what the heck does this have to do with the presentation? Well, whether you're going to a mobile initiative or whether you're just going to rely on students' own hardware, it's important that you have a backup plan, and that's what Dr. Kent just described. So in our 2 lecture halls, we actually have a designated place where IT support is available if needed, and that's outside the room to preserve the quiet space. We also have a separate accommodation overflow space, and recently we started at every exam, we now bring 5 spare iPads. Now, we haven't had to encounter that yet, but in the event that a student has an issue or maybe they don't have enough charge or what have you, rather than sending them to an alternate space to take their exam and maybe introduce more anxiety than would normally be present, we can now hand them an iPad, they log in, and they're able to take the test with their peers.
We also encourage that anybody as an early implementer maintain a paper copy of the examination so that if everything else fails, you have the capability that for select students, you can give them a hard copy of the exam and they can take it via paper.
All right, so this kind of touches on what we've already talked about, just building on our current successes. You know, again, a critical factor in our success has been not only the support from our pilot users, our early adopters, but really support from executive leadership as well. So, you know, we did the 3 courses over the summer, and, you know, it was decided shortly after that that the extended pilot would actually involve all first-year dental school courses.
Yeah, I'd point out that the initial adoption is very, very time-consuming and labor-intensive, and there's quite a steep learning curve to it. And if you try and do it on your own and making your own mistakes, as I can attest because I've made a lot of them, you will make a lot of mistakes and complicate things. And so the more that you can collaborate, use the resources that are available from ExamSoft, other participants in your institution, it helps significantly. That means that the initial proponents of the activity must make themselves available to help those new adopters.
So we're coming up on 20 minutes here, so we'll try to speed up through the rest of our presentation. But as far as the feedback cycle, I guess the most significant changes, like how do I phrase this? Let's see. I guess the most dramatic change has been the delivery of the results themselves. So previously on a paper-based or a Scantron exam, that would, you know, could take a while. It could take, you know, a couple days. It could take a week or 2.
During an examination, I can actually monitor which students have completed the exam. I can look and see what the responses to individual questions were from those early completers of the examination. Within instance of when everybody's completed the exam, I can get reporting on what the performance of the entire class was. I can also look at specific strengths and weaknesses and analysis of each individual question. Within short period of time, I can go back if necessary and modify how I'm going to handle the scoring. Another significant factor is that as I discover strengths and weaknesses in questions, I can modify those questions, and that's one of the strengths of having a strong question bank And I think that ExamSoft offers us the opportunity to build a significant question bank which we can share across disciplines as well as potentially across institutions.
I just want to add a little bit about exam grading and storing. So delivering through an electronic means there's no paper, there's nothing to put under lock and key, and it's definitely I found a more secure way of delivering an exam, because the way we used to do it was all paper. So those exams would change hands, they would be stored somewhere, they would be locked up. The reports were printed out and put in an envelope, and all of those means could be compromised at any time if it fell into the wrong hands, and if you're not very careful. So this is definitely a more secure way to administer and grade exams.
And for those of you that are worried about what about the student who wants to see their individual test and their responses, that is available through ExamSoft. I routinely, when a student has questions, will display their particular response so that they can look at what the correct answer was, what their answer was, and what the grading rubrics were.
So we're getting closer to the top of the mountain here, if you sense the metaphor of quite a journey to go through. So, we wanted to address, well, what was the student and faculty reaction to the mobile integration? And initially it was mixed, and we, kind of threw in some fun here. One tooth is clearly concerned about the learning curve, but the other two are expressing how easy it was to deliver the results, for faculty having control back in their hands over grading without having to have academic affairs or someone else, waiting on those results from a Scantron exam, and just the efficiency and timeliness of getting your exam back, not in some cases as quickly as 90 minutes after an exam, or same day, or if the instructor chose to, that write it immediately after.
So from the pedagogical perspective, it's really important because you have to understand how your students learn with the knowledge. And then if you can analyze the learning outcome with the data, it's really useful for the instructors to approach the student who didn't perform well and try to give him like one or more lectures so that the student can catch up. So I think ExamSoft is capable of doing releasing the learning outcome faster than before.
Right, and you can see, we've now started to change gears where we're now talking about ExamSoft itself as a platform, not just the mobile integration. Like Dr. Kent alluded to earlier, for the students who received iPads or D1s, I think it's made the test-taking experience a lot easier. It's the same device. It levels the playing field. Once you get over the initial hump of why are we doing exams electronically to begin with, once they find how easy it is to see their history, to get that feedback, to not have to worry about hauling in a laptop or having to deal with paper or scratch paper. All of those concerns sort of fade to the background. It then becomes about how quickly you get that feedback.
As a faculty, one of the initial issues with any type of examination was we were being limited to true, false, multiple choice. When you started to do fill in the blank and essay questions, it became very intensive to do the grading. And with the electronic format, it opened up a panorama of other options for us in terms of exam formats. Then when we added the mobile platform, it lent itself to what ExamSoft has been pioneering with the rubrics. And we're currently trying to develop a methodology where we'll use these rubrics for preclinical testing. We'll examine students on technical procedures and bring that into the clinic as well, where for students who are taking OSCEs or clinical competency exams, we can have faculty walking around with their iPad to do the grading and performance assessment and log it instantaneously. We're also investigating using smartphones, and very frequently our faculty can sign off on procedures, sign off progress notes, as well as do evaluation of the students using their smartphone.
All right, congratulations. Well, this is the goal. This is where we want everyone to get to. And that is, the whole goal isn't, it isn't the tablets themselves, right? It's about, being able to provide that personalized, relevant feedback that a student might need. So I would say, one of the, from our first run, one of the things a faculty member shared with us was, let's see, how do I put this? Being able to identify who your at-risk students are before they're, before the final, and being able to, give them that extra support that they need.
We can identify not just which students are at risk, but in what areas they're at risk. So if we have a student who may have having trouble with some of the psychological sciences or the basic sciences, we can identify those areas of weakness using things like categorization of our questions, be able to track their performance not just within a specific course, but over the course of the curriculum. And that's another key advantage to being able to track your statistics much more reliably over time. We can offer proactive assistance to the students. We give them tutoring and remediation prior to their actually needing it because they failed the course. We're striving to keep them from failing those courses.
So for all the work that we've described, this is where you want to be. Putting in, you'll find, or maybe you've already noticed, the effort with rolling out the tablet initiative in conjunction with ExamSoft. The key is, and we talk about this later, but measure 3 times so that you get as close to perfect execution and worthwhile execution as possible.
If I could make an analogy, as a faculty who started out presenting using the Blackboard and Kodachrome slides, if you look at the current methodologies where we're all sitting there with PowerPoint or Prezi or one of the other systems, we can instantaneously turn our presentations around, format presentations, not have a lot of bulk of storage issues. All of the different attractions of electronic methodology also come across with the electronic examination process. And having a mobile platform, it's the difference between being limited to a desktop versus having a tablet or a smartphone which you can work from.
So now let's talk about how you can apply this to your environment. So I guess we could break it down, first starting off with academic affairs.
Well, for academic affairs, okay, and take a hands-on approach. That means definitely buy-in from the academic affairs office or department or the people who are in charge of the curriculum. That's really key and crucial. And cross-training is also very important because you want enough people to know what's going on, and the more people understand, the better the process will go. And you can understand ways that people try to take advantage, like exam takers. So I actually researched a lot on the internet and looked for ways students try to cheat on exams, and they try to compromise exams or get an advantage or an edge. So it's definitely worth your while to stay up on the current trends of what's going on out there. And then use that information to then turn around and compose your policies and your protocols to try to offset that. So it's like, you're playing defense, I would guess, or offense, I don't know. But offense, playing offense, you try to stay ahead of what's going on, what's out there. And invest in the proctor and training. That is very important because if your proctors don't know what to look for, if your proctors don't understand how a Post-it note on a device could compromise an exam, then that's something you really need to discuss and work on.
All right, I'll speak to the IT bit a little bit. Develop a defined portfolio. So this is what we learned. We reached out to other peer institutions and we really learned pluses and minuses from things that they had discovered. So we definitely put that to our advantage. Plus we also had a push from other sources in the school wanting a digital initiative. So it kind of was a case in point where all the trifecta of things kind of came together and we managed to implement it. Support is definitely going to vary from institution to institution. We're a very small team here, so we have over 500 students enrolled at this school at one time. So 500 to 1 is no fun for anyone. So we kind of came up with the strategy that we're implementing this by class year, much like we had done previously with our learning management systems and any other thing that kind of takes a wider approach. Is define your focus group, tailor that, really refine it, maybe go back and even look at it one more time, kind of in the measure three times cut once analogy, and things like that. Also, our pilot group was very monumental in making this a success. We had people with, like Ken himself, with many years at the institution. Someone like myself with a clean set of eyes, as we refer to it, coming in and taking a look at this kind of stuff. So as we had a very diverse pilot group, which I feel has been monumental to our success. Determined self-sustained funding model. Because of the success of the digital impressions and iPad project, we're now looking at making an iPad a standard for students coming in as part of their technology fees. So we're utilizing this whole project as a case study, if you will, as saying this is how students coming into this environment could really benefit from a product like this. And partner with staff and faculty. I kind of, was always on there, out on the internet, on the online portal, downloading quick reference guides, downloading all the kind of stuff that ExamSoft has in regard to supporting their product and learning how to use it. And I even developed on the media site something that I called ExamSoft University at PDM. So one localized place where students and faculty can go. Students look at the student-focused information, and the faculty get all the stuff from, well, I know I did this before, but I forget how to create a multiple choice question, or we only do this once a quarter, so I need to figure out how to run that report that I do at the end to release results. So yeah, the real key for this was to, training, kind of going back to our super user group, getting those guys trained, making ourselves available. I mean, we all have stuff going on. I had other projects and things, but I made time to have one-on-one FaceTime with my users because, again, the ultimate goal here and the summit that we were looking for is a real success here at Penn Dental. I really honestly feel that we have accomplished that.
And related to that, you have to plan. Don't just measure 3 times, but when it doesn't quite fit, don't pick up a hammer and try and pound it into place. Some of the significant issues that you're going to have to address are how you're going to fund it, how you're going to implement the policies, and get everything to work most effectively. Resources that you can turn to are definitely utilize the resources in your institution, reach outside the institution. For example, using the community discussions that are available through ExamSoft is a very significant advantage. I don't want to kid any of you, there's an intensive startup that's associated with trying to put this into place, whether you're talking about a mobile platform or just the electronic testing mechanism. But it is worth the investment because once you get it up and running, things go so much smoother. You have so much access to information that previously was very difficult for you to utilize. The ability to share questions and question banks across time is significant. Those of us in dental school are concerned with the accreditation standards, and it allows us to document much better our ability to accomplish each individual standard. We literally categorize our questions based upon which standards they're addressing.
So I guess if I can just fill in a couple of the dots here. For faculty especially, or faculty proxy, if you're more of a support role, previewing the assessments in the same modality that's used as your student. So by that I mean, if you know you're going to administer an iPad exam, go ahead and borrow an iPad and check out the experience to make sure that your exam that your questions are going to be interpreted and seen in the same way that you intend them to be seen.
One of the policies that we've been very rigorous about is when we go to publish an examination, it's not just reviewed by the faculty, but we make sure that each question is analyzed by the IT staff to make sure that all of the individual little checkboxes are appropriately indicated, and that the formatting of the exam, the formatting of the individual questions, all is in appropriate place. That the assessment, as it's published, all the blocks are filled out appropriately so that it goes off without a hitch.
Yeah, some of you may be cringing, like, oh, I don't want to involve IT. You know, that's the first time or second time that you're doing this. You just want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed before you actually release your exam. It will just make your your students' test-taking experience that much better, and your exam results process that much better. And moving on to QA in the last 5 minutes of our presentation, you know, things that we're going to do to help refine this process. We do want to get to the point where we're doing a quarterly or at least a semi-annual reflection with our pilot group and check in and see, have an opportunity to get people face-to-face and actually share what their experience has been like and share lessons learned. We're still going to do our ongoing workshops every week with ExamSoft, and we anticipate, you know, this is the first year of this initiative, so we anticipate that there's going to be a lot of support for courses that are just going to use this tool for the first time. But, excuse me, after that, we expect that to lessen once all of our power users are in place in each course.
We did have a strong fear that in every institution there are naysayers, and one of the most rewarding things to us is as we've begun to bring this out over a broader scope of our courses and our students, that some of those faculty that we thought were going to be our biggest objectors actually have bought into it and solicited participation. They've requested that they be allowed to participate before they were actually scheduled to be brought online.
And, you know, going to the third point, you know, keeping up with best practices on question design and subject matter, you know, that's obviously going to vary from one subject domain to another, but for us, you know, we've kind of figured out the structure that really works well for basic sciences or really works well for clinical. And then just, you know, not to beat a dead horse, but always previewing your exams. That's something that we will continue to encourage. Whether someone has a lot of experience with delivering on mobile or delivering with electronic exams, that's the price of admission, so to speak. Test, test, test.
And as you're developing the testing, even though you're going electronic, it doesn't eliminate the need to maintain your basic practices for any examination, including as you're developing questions. If you have policy that you have it reviewed by different levels of your faculty and staff, continue those practices. It's actually easier to do it when you have an electronic format.
You know, and everything that we're listing out here, you know, we're a dental school, but they're not limited to just dentistry. We strongly feel that our lessons learned would apply to most, if not all environments. We believe it's absolutely replicatable. So, you know, to that end, if you have any questions or you want to connect with us offline, you know, feel free to reach out to us. We're always happy to share our experience and address any concerns or questions.
Okay. Can you hear me, Maria?
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Cool, thank you. We actually do have quite a few questions, and it's far too many for us to cover in any sort of reasonable amount of time right now. So since we've already gone 5 minutes over the webinar, I'll just make sure that for all the questions that attendees have asked during this presentation, that either my team answers them, or if it's appropriate for it to go to your team, that we'll forward it on to you guys.
And if I could suggest you have your online community, that might be a wonderful place to post these questions with the answers.
Yes, it definitely would be. It definitely would be. And thank you for the shout out to the online community there as well. Well, yeah, I would like to thank you guys now just for such a great presentation. Again, it's really impressive that you were able to get this entire team together for a webinar, and it went off so smoothly, I think. And your Prezi was just fantastic. That's coming from somebody who's Prezi illiterate, but I still thought it was just fantastic. And just the material you presented today was really, really beneficial and informative. So thank you. And with that, I think I'm going to go ahead and sign off, unless you have anything else to say.
No, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we encourage everybody to buy in.
Thank you, guys.
All right, take care.
Signing off now.
All right.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.